has urged Professor Mahmood Yakubu, the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, to identify politicians and political parties indeed violating constitution and statutory legal provisions and international standard which prohibits early election campaign, and to ensure that there are prosecution of these perpetrators and their sponsors. INEC last week expressed concerns about the early election campaign by political parties, stating that the campaign has undermined its ability to track campaign finance limits. INEC also claimed there is no sanction for early election campaigners. But in a letter dated 13th of September 2025 and signed by SERAP Deputy Director Kolawole Oluwadare, the group said that INEC was not helpless when political parties and their candidates and other politicians contravene the legal prescribed period for election campaigns, stating that early elections campaigns are unconstitutional and illegal. According to SERAP, INEC should not be seen to be encouraging or giving legitimacy to political parties' candidates and their politicians carrying out early election campaign outside the legally prescribed campaign period. As INEC is here to punish, or rather publish, the timetable and schedule of activities for elections, early campaigns are inconsistent and incapable with the letter and spirit of Nigerian Constitution 99 as amended, and the Electoral Act of 2022 of the country, and also international human rights obligation. So, what should be done to end such illegal practice by the perpetrators? And should INEC not take responsibility, knowing that is the electoral umpire? And overall, what does the law truly say about early campaign? Well, this and more is what this edition of Dialogue is centered on, and that is INEC and the issue of early campaigns. That's what we are critically looking today on our Dialogue. You can also still remember it also took center stage on some of the major headlines on the dailies today. Hence, we need to talk about it. And we're talking about SERAP telling INEC to do the needful, especially as it concerns early election from political parties and also their candidates. And to help us really look at this issue, we have no other person but a constitutional lawyer joining us all the way from Asaba. And we're talking of no other person but Barrister Emmanuel Erhirhi. Good morning, Barrister Emmanuel Erhirhi. Thank you so much for joining us on this lovely edition of Dialogue. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, good morning, my brother.
Well,
my friend.
Well, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Barrister Emmanuel Erhirhi. Now, I really want us to go straight into it. Now, sir, all of this started last week when INEC came out publicly to tell us that, well, it looks as if some political parties and their candidates have started early elections. And it's like they said, I'll just go to what they said, that these campaigns has undermined their ability, I'm talking of INEC, to track campaigns finance. And we do know that the issue of who is funding elections, especially as in campaign elections, the funds are always so important, especially as it concerns Section 88 of the new Electoral Act 2022. But my question is, why are political parties and politicians still going ahead to campaign when they do know that this contravenes this section of the Electoral Act 99? So that's my question. Well, why are they still doing this undermining they know it contravenes the law?
Well, I want to thank you very much for that question. And I think INEC, as a statutory body,
yes,
charged with the responsibility of conducting free, fair, and credible election, is a body established by law under the 1999 Constitution, and also giving a legal framework and a feedback and under the Electoral Act 2022.
Okay.
Now, the provisions of the Electoral Act, in conjunction with the 1999 Constitution, gives them the responsibility to ensure that before, during, and after election, certain rules and regulations as complementary the Electoral Act and 1999 Constitution should be added strictly to. One of those exercises is the limitation of political broadcasts
Okay.
and campaign by political parties. Now, it is imperative for us to actually appreciate what does the law says about early campaign by political parties
Okay.
in conjunction with finances
Okay.
of those political parties ahead of the election coming up in 2027.
7. Yeah.
Now, Section 94 of the Electoral Act 2022 provides strictly as follows. 1. For the purpose of this act, the period of campaigning in public by every political party shall commence 150 days before polling day and end 24 hours prior to that day. 2. Sub 2. A registered political party which through any person acting on his behalf during the 24 hours before polling day, A. advertises on the facilities of any broadcasting undertaking, or 2. B. procures for publication or acquiescence in the publication of an advertisement in a newspaper for the purpose of promoting or opposing a particular candidate, commits an offense under this act,
Okay.
and is liable on conviction to a maximum fine of 500,000 naira.
Okay.
Now, let's take a cursory look at this section 94
Okay.
as enacted by or provided under the Electoral Act,
Yes.
which with the head title say limitation of political broadcasts
Okay.
and campaign by political parties, which is what the INEC has been called upon by Sarah to caution desperate politicians who are in flagrant abuse of this particular provision. Now, if you look at sub 1, it said the period of campaigning in public by every political party registered by INEC shall commence 150 days. 150 days before the polling day
Okay.
that will be scheduled by INEC, which is around 2027. Don't forget that we're in 2025 running,
Yes.
and end 24 hours prior to that day. Now, the interpretation as this provision has been enacted by the National Assembly with respect to limitation of political broadcasts clearly shows that any campaign before this 150 days and prior to 24 hours of that day of the election, there's a violation. And when there's a violation, the punishment prescribed for this violation is as stated in sub 2, paragraph B, that the conviction, the liability will be a conviction of 500,000 naira.
Okay.
Now, INEC as a body, you and I know, as in general, know that INEC cannot be the ones going about searching for those who are doing campaign, early campaign, as I've rightly pointed out by Sarah.
Yeah.
They are a body charged with statutory and constitutional responsibility
Okay.
to ensure that the provisions of the Electoral Act and the Constitution are properly followed strictly
Okay.
by political parties and their aspirants who will become candidates at the upcoming general election. Because don't forget that primaries and other exercises incidental to the election are yet to be conducted. Even congresses are yet to be held, where primaries will be conducted and candidates will emerge as flag bearers of those political parties. Now, if any campaign or there's any likelihood of campaign as envisaged or spotted out by Sarah, it is now up to Sarah to write to INEC by way of petition
Okay.
with cogent proof.
Okay.
It is not for them to expect INEC to embark on a white good chase
Okay. By Simon
to start
Erhirhi, I will plead with
monitoring.
you. I will plead with you to hold on. Now, the reason I'm telling you to
Okay.
hold on, we know of a fact that the INEC chairman came out last week, to be precise. I'm talking about Professor Mahmood Yakubu, came out precise last week to say, well, we are now in a bit of a dilemma. Some political parties are already campaigning. He came out and gave us, or rather cried to Nigerians that people are already campaigning. So he knows these political parties. He came out. So would it be fair now to say Serap should bring to his knowledge, when he already knows these political parties and those that are already contravening Section 94, subsection 1 and 2 of the new Electoral Act 2022 as amended?
Good. If the position remains that he's the one crying out,
Yes.
as the INEC chairman, then he has the power to invoke the powers, the contravention in Section 94,
Okay.
as a matter of urgency. So he need not wait for Serap to approach him or go to court to compel him to carry out that responsibility.
Okay.
If he's the one coming out to cry,
yes, he did.
I was thinking that it was Serap. I was thinking that it was Serap crying.
No.
In as much as he's the one, INEC chairman, Professor Yakubu, who came out to say that he's aware.
Yes.
So him being aware, there is a law backing him that you must invoke this particular provision. Then he ought to invoke the provision as matter of urgency, so that it will serve as deterrent to other political parties
Okay.
who are also trying to embark on such exercise.
Okay, now we'll come back to what you feel he needs to do, because that's even a reason why Serap sent this open letter to him. Now, let's still remain with that letter, because we on Dialogue on Atlantic TV, we were opportune to also get that very letter that was sent to Mahmood Yakubu and from Serap. And if you allow me, he says, according to the letter, it stated, the copy, like I said, it said, in part, if you allow election campaign, we advise that the effect on economic development due to prolonged electionary issues. It also went to say that several state governors seem to be using fuel subsidy windfall for early election campaigns, with many of the governors grossly failing in investing in social and economic development despite a significant increase in revenue since the removal of fuel subsidy. Now, this brings me to my next question, because as much as we've agreed now that there seems to be campaign by these politicians, Serap also is insisting that these monies they are now using for campaign should rather come to the people. Now, my question is, how really are ordinary Nigerians feeling the effect of these early campaigns? What will be the likely effect on ordinary Nigerians, judging with what even Serap said, that monies that were used for naturally should have been used for social and economic development is being channeled into unnecessary campaigning that even the time have not come yet. So let's look at the whole effect this will have on ordinary Nigerians that early campaigns have started, and the funds that naturally INEC would be able to check according to Section 88 of the Electoral Act 22 as amended seems to be channeled differently. So let's look at the overall effect these early campaigns will naturally have on Nigerians, according to you.
The truth remains that Serap is a civil society group, which actually is like a watchdog of the government and its activities. I must commend them very well for taking this bold step. And also INEC as the electoral body, who has also been put into the know-how to act in accordance with the law to ensure that there's compliance with the provisions of Section 94 with respect to early campaign, actually carried out its responsibility. Now, the effect of, because the problem we're having now is that is where the EFCC in particular now has to come in. They have to monitor any funds as alleged by Serap that is being channeled to political parties for the popular campaign. Because all these are allegations that need proof.
Okay.
So I think that beyond INEC, SERAP should also write a letter to EFCC that they should be monitoring any funds to political parties they perceive that such funds will be used for early campaign. Because now we all know that campaign entails a lot.
Yes.
You understand? So when they are saying that they are early campaigns, what aspect of the campaign are they really questioning? Is it just that the election of billboards, or the movement from one a constituency to another? Don't forget that there are some states that are doing by-elections
Yes.
to occupy certain positions, like in the legislative houses, like House of Rep and others. Remember that the by-election will be
Yeah.
conducted,
Yes.
and those seats needs to be occupied. So is it those campaigns that they are referring to? So we should be able to dissect the issue of the campaign that is being questioned.
Okay.
If it's a campaign for a general election, we should specify it. Or if it's a campaign for a by-election that is yet to be conducted, and you and I know that campaign in that regard will have to be commenced in compliance with the period before that by-election will be held. They should also give a distinction of this campaign. So if you are giving a holistic deliberation on campaign
Yes.
ahead of 2027 elections, they should be able to specify so that Nigerians will know where they are coming from.
Okay.
Because
Now.
it is not enough to just raise. It's
Okay,
not enough to just raise an
raise
issue.
issues on that. Now,
Good.
let me still go back to my initial question. And I'm looking at the effect
Okay.
all of this early campaign undermining. You are still talking about how really legitimate or how really serious, or if there is any campaign in itself. We can see billboards scattered around some states talking about 2027 already. So that's already a
Yeah.
pointer that such of these campaigns are already going on. But let's look at the general effect of these campaigns, because that's where my next question lies, and that's where my question is. So let me rephrase the question like you people talking, or say it in court. Now, if you take your mind back to the 30th day of last month, August to be precise, a Saturday, there was violence erupted in Kaduna during the inaugural committee meeting of the ADC. And we also saw the former Kaduna State Governor, Erhirhi, coming out to say some of these political talks were being sent by the ruling party. But we're not going there. We're still with the issue of what effect early campaign will have on the populace itself. Now, my question now, don't you feel all of these unnecessary hitting up the policy is due to early campaigns by these politicians? Because definitely that violence that erupted in Kaduna just on the 30th day of August would never have been there. So let's look at other effects that naturally will follow early campaign as it concerns the Electoral Act.
Well, thank you very much, my brother. Issue of the effect early campaign will have with the economy.
Yes.
Is a different ball game entirely.
Okay.
Why do I say so? Now, we know our politicians, they are after their personal interests. And if you look at it very well, aside what played out in Kaduna on the 30th of August, which you are referring to, there is also a leadership crisis, which is already in court, as to the ADC, who should be the national chairman and other elected
officers
to pilot. Yes, good. So that matter is still subjudice in court. Now, if government is to be sincere, like I always said, the primary purpose of government is the security and welfare of its citizens. Now, they are talking about an election that they are yet to even see in 2027. The one for which they have been elected, they are yet to complete the term of office, as well as also discharging everything they said in their manifesto, if actually that is what to go by with. Now, Nigerians are facing serious economic challenge that Nigerians are hopeful that the government of the day ought to work in line with the social contract theory that is embedded in chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, because that is the social contract that exists between the government and the governed. Upon which one of the provisions has to do with section 14 to say the security and welfare of its citizens are the primary purpose of government. Now, if early campaign is what is at their beck and call at the moment, or that is a priority, let me put it that way. Now, we know that early campaign go with funds channeling,
Yes.
which section 88 makes a serious provision with the number of funds that the political party need to expend
Yes.
with respect to
During any
its general
campaign.
election campaign. Good. Now the question remains: what is the role of EFCC in all of this? Because we believe that in any other transaction, they are very active and they come into play to see that certain funds are tracked to individuals or corporate bodies. But when it comes to the issue of political parties, I believe that I said setup ought to have written to EFCC just as they are intimating INEC chairman who has cried out.
But Emmanuel Erhirhi, sorry for cutting short. Will it not like shooting the gun? If they do so, would it not naturally be that they go to the electoral umpire itself, which is INEC, before going to the EFCC? And in all honesty, should INEC not be the one that will naturally reach out to the EFCC on issue of campaign funding? Because like we stated, in that very letter we saw, they told INEC that it is his main mandate, looking at section 94, subsection 1 and 2 of the Electoral Act 2022. It is the main mandate of the independent umpire to do all of that. So my question is, should INEC not now reach out to the EFCC, or does INEC has any major power to persecute these political parties, as envisaged in the section of the Electoral Act?
Good. Now talking about INEC going to EFCC. Before INEC raised that alarm, they also know that they are supposed to have approached the EFCC that certain funds are being standing to political parties ahead of the upcoming general election in 2027.
Which they don't
Now,
know where the
if
funds are
INEC
from.
is
Okay.
good, if INEC is pretentious not to carry out that responsibility, why then set up as a body can also play that vital role, because they are watchdog to compel EFCC to ask INEC that this is what is going on in various political parties, to wake up to their responsibility. Why EFCC also has the power under the EFCC Act with respect to how funds are being channeled for a particular purpose to also act. So INEC and EFCC has a major role to play with respect to finances of political parties ahead of general election.
Okay.
Now we standing the cry that INEC is crying at this stage, because to me that cry is not even holding water.
Okay.
INEC is expected to discharge its responsibility entrusted to it by law. They are the one to prosecute these offenders as demonstrated in section 94, sub 1 and 2. Okay. So if an electoral body is pretentious not to know the powers conferred on it and to exercise it where necessary, then that is to tell you the insincerity that is embedded in such an institution. And okay. EFCC also knowing the role to play in all of this, and they are silent, then you know that something is wrong somewhere. So the only person that can wake up their responsibilities is SERAP. Now, SERAP having written to INEC, is expected that INEC, as a matter of urgency, they ought to carry out this responsibility entrusted to them by law.
Okay, now
EFCC on the other hand.
Erhirhi, sorry to cut you short again, because I want us to progress with our discussion today. Now, SERAP has given INEC 7 days. According to the letter we have here, SERAP has given INEC 7 days to do the needful. And what they said is INEC should comply with our request in public interest, as they stated. Now, I'm a bit interested to know, do you see INEC going forward and obliging SERAP in bringing these persons to book? Do you see INEC complying with that very directive given by SERAP, or you feel it's going to be business as usual?
Well, the major challenge we have in Nigeria is that some institutions pretend not to wake up to their responsibilities. Now that Serap has given INEC a 7-day ultimatum,
Yes.
let's wait for the expiration of the 7 days and see what INEC will do. And where INEC fails in that regard, the only option left for Serap is to approach the court to compel, by way of order of mandamon, to compel INEC to wake up to their responsibility. And where INEC fails in that regard, we also know what is the consequence of not complying with a constitutionally entrusted responsibility in an institution of like INEC. So now it's a wake-up call, because ahead of 2027, a lot of people don't want a repeat of what have happened in previous elections.
Yes.
Nigerians are now wiser. Nigerians, we're in a digital world. A lot of them forget. We're in a digital world, and the social media is engulfed with a lot of persons that are making criticisms. Outside the fact that Serap has come out as a civil body with a mandate to ensure that transparency plays out in this forthcoming election. What played out in 2023, they don't want a repeat of such. And in actualizing that, that is what some of these steps they are taking at this early stage, to let INEC know that we are aware of what is going on. If you like, don't wake up to your responsibility. If you like, cry crocodile tears. But we want to let you know that Nigerians are very up and doing this time around. And if every Nigerian can take up that social responsibility to ensure that institutions entrusted with certain responsibilities are accountable and are transparent in the exercise of their functions entrusted to them by law, then those institutions will wake up and know that I am now ready to do what is best interest of Nigerian populace. Because if we don't get it right this time around, we can never get it right again. 2027 election is going to be the litmus paper to know whether Nigeria is really ready and interested in this so-called concept of democracy and rule of law. Because these are twin concepts in every democratic setting. So if you are saying we're practicing true federalism or democracy, this is the time for Nigerians to see whether we are really interested in it or we're just saying it for lip service. So I, as a body, having given an ultimatum by Sarah, it's expected that at the expiration or even before the expiration of the 7 days, if they are sincere to themselves as an institution, they should do the needful, so that Sarah will know that yes, they are actually waking up to their responsibility, and Nigerians will have that confidence in them.
Okay.
That there will be no manipulation on the day of the general election in 2027. But if they decide to decline in the discharge of this responsibility given to them, or this ultimatum given to them by Sarah, then you know that there's going to be a serious battle ahead of
Now,
INEC.
Barrister Emmanuel Erhirhi, I will
Ahead
give
of
you to hold on.
2027.
Now, you talked about Serap, and this is not the first time Serap will be instituting such ultimatum or even going to court. We also do know under the late Muhammad Buhari regime, they had almost close to 50 cases in court that was never honored by that very government. Is there stated? But my question now, yes, Serap, like you insisted, is doing the right thing. But don't you feel the war alone should not be fought by Serap alone? Would other major bodies, like even the Nigerian Bar Association, the Nigerian Labour Congress, the Trade Union Congress, NAS, and National Association of Resident Doctors, should other major bodies not also hamp on this need of INEC doing the right thing, knowing that, like we do know, if you look at section 83, subsection 4 of the Electoral Act 2022, mandates INEC to comply with the issue of checkmating these political parties and also their sponsors. So my question is, what of if other major organizations hamp on this very moving train of compelling INEC Don't you see this thing happening rather than just letting a lone voice, and I'm talking of just Serap, shout the loudest?
Yes, the issue of other bodies in conjunction with SERAP actually towing this line of compelling INEC to do the needful is actually a right decision, in the sense that only SERAP as a civil organization cannot holistically ensure that INEC comply with its statutory responsibility. Other bodies like the NBA, the NME, NLC, and other pressure groups ought to come with one voice to see that INEC conducts a free, fair, and credible election, and ensure that the provisions of the Electoral Act and the Constitution are complied with by political parties and their candidates. If there seems to be any violation, the sanction that is expected to be meted out should be carried out without delay to serve as deterrent to other political parties. Now, on the issue, the responsibility not to be taken only by Sarah.
Yes.
We should know that humans are guided by interest. Now, the question we ask ourselves that for the past how many years since we started practicing democracy from 1999, it has been only Sarah that most times take up actions against government or certain institutions entrusted by law to carry out certain responsibilities which they failed to carry out. Only to do, among other pressure groups, SERAP is leading. And now, when SERAP have approached the court time without number and even gotten some judgment in their favor, that is another major challenge, because getting a judgment is on one hand, enforcing it, particularly against government institutions, is another Herculean task that makes even some Nigerians whittle down their fight against certain acts of government. Because if a government that claims to respect rule of law and practice true democracy, a judgment of court is handed down and you refuse to comply for whatever reason, like what is playing out in the Senate now.
Yes.
To recall back Senator Natasha, you see what is playing out in the Senate, despite the judgment. So that is to tell you how irresponsible some institutions are. Particularly institutions that you expect that they should comply. They are the ones singing rule of law, rule of law, rule of law. Now, it is now time to comply with that rule of law you have been chorusing. It becomes a challenge. Now, this certain non-compliance or disrespect to court orders and rulings, and where punishment are not also prescribed, because who are those to also carry out or enforce this? You see the apparatus of the federal government, the police, and other executive. Now, this person, they keep quiet because they are taxpayer, their taskmaster. They cannot challenge him or her as an institution. Now, what do you expect of the ordinary Nigerians? They will tell you, why will I start the fight at the end of the day? Nothing comes out for that fight. That's why some of them, other civil bodies, are sticking it out. Not because they cannot fight the way SERAP is going, but they found that in time past, they have also embarked on some journey, and it yielded no fruit. So you cannot be spending money and time, and at the end of the day, you only have beautiful judgments that cannot be enforced. Okay, so these are some of the challenges that are making other bodies to be so reluctant. Not because they are not interested in what, or they cannot carry out what SERAP is doing. But again, like I said, some of them too, they are interest groups who have much interest in government. So because of what they are benefiting from government, they may be reluctant to also carry out such fights.
Okay, now,
so there are so many factors.
Yeah, because I still want us to remain there. And because, yes, as much as you say the organ of government needs to really ensure in ensuring that these acts are being carried out, especially we're talking about of the Nigerian police and other security agencies. But don't you feel, it's not like I'm bringing you on board because I know you are also a member of the Nigerian Bar Association, but don't you feel the Nigerian Bar Association also needs to do more as it concerns enforcement of this law? Because we do know that they are also a very strong and powerful organ that can also bring government to bear. Now, a reason I'm asking this, if we look at it, a recent release from the World Bank and also in conjunction with the National Bureau of Statistics indicates that 129 million Nigerians are already in the extreme poverty level. This is a country that we have governors that cannot even pay the 70,000 naira minimum wage. But according to what Serap said there, they are now using these monies to fund campaigns already, with billboard being put in some strategic places in the different state capitals cut across the country. Now, my next question, can the Nigerian Bar Association also weigh in the big stick? Knowing that I'm just a common man, but I know Section 225 of the Nigerian Constitution 99 as amended insists that funds that are public funds should not be used for campaigns. So can the Nigerian Bar Association also weigh the big stick and say, well, enough is enough. We will do something and end all of these shenanigans?
Well, talking about the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, which is a body I belong to as a member, as a additional. As a body, we have tried to see that governments or government institutions, they comply with certain acts in time past. Even currently, the current NBA president, Afam Osigwe SAN, has also in his own way communicated to the Attorney General of the Federation, who is charged with that responsibility to ensure that government complies or obeys certain orders that are made against them by the court. But you see, like I said, when individual interests outweigh general interests, these are some of the things that plays out. Because don't forget that the Attorney General is a political appointee. So for him to have the willpower to compel government to enforce or comply with certain orders, you can see what played out in Rivers State. That is a critical example, where an arranged emergency rule was imposed. And now look at how it just ended, because they waited for the period to elapse. They now said the city governor can return back of it. The NBA came out. They issued a statement. They even wrote to the Attorney General, please, this is not accommodative in a democratic setting. What happened? The NBA president cannot go and hijack or compel the Attorney General to tell Mr. President to do the needful. They have done it in their own way, issued communiques, held meetings. Even our last concluded conference at Enugu, these same issues played out, that government should ensure that they comply and obey court orders in a democratic setting. So that's why I gave you the classical example of what I played out in Rivers State. That is one among even what is going on in the country. Now, the NBA as a body, like any other pressure group, has its limitations. The highest they can do is to continue to advocate and speak out against government's harsh policies against its citizens, and the need for them to respect the rule of law. And the only person that can compel the government to do that is the Attorney General of the Federation, who is the chief legal officer of the country and a political appointee of the government. So when the AG of the Federation fails in that regard, what do you want the NBA to do? The NBA are not his appointee. They are not his appointer. They are not the ones that appointed him there. So the highest they can do is to continue to speak out, which we have been doing as a body. But the important thing is that, like I rightly tell people, if we are sincere to ourselves, some of all these things won't be playing out.
Okay.
If we want our generations to appreciate the concept of democracy that we are practicing, there are certain actions that should not be seen to be manifested. But it's unfortunate that some of them are playing out. And what does that go to show to upcoming generations? They will look at it as a norm, because there's already a bad precedent that have been laid, and which is not good for the current governance in Nigeria. If we want to go forward, and the world is watching, It's not surprising that today statistics are coming out that a lot of millions of Nigerians are in abject poverty. These statistics are always there and will be there. But having been made known to Nigeria as a country that this is the statistics of poverty rate in the country, what have our leaders done? Now, in most cases, I even blame some of those conferences that they attend, international conferences, whereby some of our leaders are even given opportunity to address on certain global issues that in their own country, such issues are very manifest. I expected such conference not to even give them the opportunity to speak because they have no moral obligation to be there rather than talk more of speaking in such a conference. Where such issue that you are addressing is prevalent in your country. So we have a lot to do, both at the international community and within ourselves, to see that certain wrongs are righted for posterity's sake, because posterity will judge a lot of us, both the old and the young ones in this country. And upcoming generations will not forgive us if they are made to understand that these are the things that played out.
Okay,
And they are
but Sir
coming to
Emmanuel
witness.
Erhirhi, I will plead with you to forgive me on this, though. And time is not a friend. And you know, when you're having such interesting discussion, especially as it concerns what's happening in the country, time is never a friend when you're having such discussion. But I need to thank you so much. And I'm talking of no other person but Barrister Emmanuel Erhirhi is a constitutional lawyer joining us all the way from Asaba to give us an insight on what he feels. This very letter written to INEC by SERAP, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, is insisting that a 7 days ultimatum is given to INEC to do the needful. But all the same, the needed thing for us to do now is to thank you so much, Barrister Emmanuel Erhirri, for joining us. And be rest assured, we really appreciate if you can join us any other time for us to talk about real matters, especially as it concerns the country. Thank you so much, Barrister Emmanuel Erhirri, for your time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much, my brother.
Well, anyway, our pleasure is all ours, and you do know dialogue is always on every weekday about this time, 9 to 10, and that's when we tend to talk about something important. But also do remember that the discussion continues. Let's keep talking, but rather send us what you feel about this very discussion on our different social media platforms. Let's get your insight. Should INEC be compelled to do what they need to do, or should they just go ahead and put a plug, especially as it concerns campaign by political parties and politicians undermining the Constitution? And we're talking about Section 94, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act 2022, indicates that it has to be 150 days before the election and 24 hours before the election truly commences that the campaign needs to be. That's a clear-cut window that is being provided by the Constitution. But like I said, go drop your comments on our different social media platforms. Let's have your view as it concerns this and other major topics we've had on dialogue. But for me, God willing, we'll do another dialogue tomorrow.